Substack this, Substack that. Everyone's talking about Substack. What is it exactly? Do you need one? Should you be there? Is it scary? Let's just get into it right now on The Ambition Show. Okay, y'all know. Now, if you've seen episodes in the past, you know I love email marketing. By far, one of my favorite forms to market, promote your business. Most importantly, to connect with an audience and build a good relationship with that audience. Yes, more so than even social media. We'll get into why, actually. And that goes into one of the pillars of why we had to do this episode. Because doing a lot of email marketing, got to write. Now, you don't have to be a professional writer. You don't have to be a great author or anything like that. But you have to be a writer. You have to enjoy some aspects of writing to get your words out, right? To connect with people and build relationships with audiences. And one of the platforms that keeps coming up as the platform to be not only for writers, but for those who want to have a deeper connection with the audience is Substack. Now, I hear about these all the time. New email marketing platform, new blogging platform, new way to monetize your blog, new way to monetize your audience, new way to connect with your audience, new, this, that, other, fifth to the third. It gets old real quickly. And I know you probably get tired of it too. But this is my end of the pond. This is what I handle a lot, focusing on digital marketing in ways that creatives, ways that entrepreneurs can market and build their businesses. So had to take a deep dive. And sure enough, I found out one of the authors that I follow on another platform is raving about Substack. Is talking all day about Substack. They love Substack. Wrote a book about Substack. Like, good Lord, what's this Substack? And that's why we're here. Because a few months ago, dipped my toe in. Went on that side of the pool. Checked it out. Now, just like any other platform, has its pros. Has its cons, has its ups, has its downs. But what I will say, when we talk about living your brand, must admit, this platform is fully aligned. Where a lot of brands fall off, they say one thing and they do completely another. They are fully aligned. Now, full disclosure, I do have a Substack. Now, I'm back on Substack. And I will explain why I just use that word. Back on Substack. Because it's a very important aspect of one of the things to be cautious of on any platform. And we'll get into it. We'll talk about, of course, the pros, the cons, and really the background of the platform. But then we also have a great guest today. Not only someone that I followed on Substack. In fact, the first person I followed on Substack. Person I think embodies exactly what Substack is going after and what's going for when connecting with creators, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and those who are looking to leverage the platform for a greater relationship and stronger relationship with their target audience. We'll have a conversation with a fantastic author on Substack as well when we come back. So to understand really what a brand is all about, we have to get to the core of it, specifically the mission and the vision, because that's how you truly understand a brand, more than a product, more than a service. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't want someone pigeonholing your entire brand into one product one day and, you create an entire product line and you're stuck now. And that's what people know you as, this product company. By the way, pigeonhole. I've always hated pigeonhole. I mean, it's weird. I live in the city. I've never seen a pigeon in a hole. I've seen them on a rooftop, pooping on everybody in a viaduct. Never in a hole. Once again, tangent, you know how I do. Point is that to truly understand the brand, let's get to the core of it. So when this company came around, and they've been around for a little while, but I know you've been hearing about Substack quite a bit over the past maybe 1 or 2 years. And same way for me, like literally within the past 12 months, Substack just started blowing up to be the platform that more creators need to be on. And that's what we want to get to the core of. Is it the best platform for you as a creator, as you as a solo entrepreneur? Maybe as a small business. Is this the best way for you to reach your target audience and kind of get away from the noise of social media? which is one of the reasons why this platform was created in the first place. More than a newsletter company, though. Keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. So we see Rajaj, Chris, and Hamish, when they came together to develop a platform, it was to get away, as it says here, transphobia and disinformation, right? And the platform has actually been called out for being kind of, slanted, which makes you wonder. If they're trying to avoid controversy, they kind of go right into controversy. It's just the way the world works, right? And getting away from social media was one of the key points that they wanted to focus on, helping creators, helping writers initially. But overall, anyone a part of this creative or creator economy, push away from some of the controversy and focus more on creating and developing the content to connect with their target audience. And that's what we're seeing a lot of people do right now. Now, only been around for about 5 years, but this platform has blown up extremely fast. Right now, they have over 20 million active users. And of course, you think about it in comparison to something like a Facebook and Instagram, hell, of course, TikTok. That's kind of a drop in the bucket, but you have to look at it like this. And this is the real drop you should look at. Think about throwing a rock into the Pacific Ocean. That's kind of what a post on Instagram and Facebook is, right? Let's just be real. You'll be lucky if the people who call your friends ever see anything you post on those platforms. And that's what Substack was trying to get away from. Getting in front of the target audience, getting in front of the people who care the most about your product. And of course, if you can, profit. This is definitely more than a newsletter corporation, a newsletter business, because they combine key elements to keep you connected to your audience. And actually, we're going to go into why these elements are pretty much the ones you need to focus on. Right. Key elements such as notes, chat, email, and of course, a simple newsletter that goes a long way, but can actually work as a landing page as well, is fundamental to connecting you to your audience. And most importantly, building a relationship with that audience long term where it can be profitable, but just overall fulfilling. You have multiple ways to engage with your audience, but look at the many publications that are on it. This is just in the news category, right? We have publications from entertainment news, political journalism, and of course, podcasts and bloggers. Gotta love us, right? And of course, Substack has many of its own publications where it goes out, takes out curated information, curate different articles, notes, even newsletters, of course. Gets them in front of the people. But this is the great part about Substack in comparison to some other platforms. You are going to see what you subscribe to. You're going to see what you follow. You're going to see who you connect with. And if you want to, you can check out what the curation areas have. And there's multiple publications to check out on here. And this is why looking at curated publications like this in the Substack post or other Substack, created newsletters and landing pages are fantastic for you to discover new authors, writers, musicians. Yes, musicians. Patti Smith. We're talking about legendary musicians that are on this platform. We're talking about award-winning authors, journalists, as well as accomplished and notable entrepreneurs on this platform, making the most of it by connecting with the audience. But wouldn't be doing you justice, wouldn't be fair if I didn't go over the features and then get into those pros and cons. Now, a couple core features here, and some have just been introduced within the past few months, which shows that the brand is constantly evolving. We have the overall, what you see here, which is the actual Substack page, which I consider like a landing page. And you see, you get a URL there. That isn't that crazy long URL that we see in a lot of generic places where you say, oh, you get a free URL. Yay. Not like that, people. We're not working like that over here. Here's the part, just to kick it off, that I like the most. Your entire newsletter can be a landing page. So if you click on your newsletter that you sent out, it actually is that landing page. Right. And you can click into the email. You didn't have to go back into the email. You just have the newsletter right here that you sent out via email. But if someone subscribed to that newsletter, they received it via email and they can also open it up in the app. See, this is actually removing one of those barriers for traditional newsletters. Usually you only get it via, your email. In this case, you're actually getting it via the email and the app. So if a person is in the app, looking at other, of course, notes, having a chat, maybe a new publication, They will receive a notification if they subscribe to you. They receive a notification that you just sent out a new email or a new newsletter. But they don't have to go to the email to check it. They can just look at it right there in the app, which is a fantastic advantage over some of the other newsletter platforms that are out there. Gotta admit, that's pretty cool. Also, what we don't see in most newsletters is an opportunity to connect social media elements. Even though the founders were getting away from social media, they kept some of those core elements. You can share, you can chat, you can like. And of course, as we all know, likes are beautiful, but damn it, we love the vanity of it all. Going back to that landing page, you also have notes. You can archive your newsletter, you can archive notes, which can be used to your advantage. We're going to get into that in 1 second. And then of course, you got to tell people about you, man. You got to tell people about the world. You got to tell people about you. Hey, that's me typing. You have many opportunities to build out an entire online presence, online platform, even if you have a website somewhere else. And this is why it's a really good advantage to using a platform like this, because it kind of brings it all under one umbrella, but removes a lot of those barriers of entry or removes a lot of that noise. And that's one of the things I like about it. But of course, as we go into these features, I'm going to call out a few cons. So with some cons to it, okay? Just letting you know. So one of the drawbacks I would say from a overall discovery standpoint, and really if you are looking at this as an ultimate tool for yourself, and I will bring up two opportunities I think compared to some other platforms, Substack definitely wins over. I would say their discovery could be a little bit better, because focusing right now, the home discovery, it is primarily what you already are following, which of course, that's one of the benefits. You want to look at those things, right? If you're looking at publications, you're looking at different authors, people that you follow, it's great. But when you want to discover something new, you kind of have to seek it out. And I will say that is, of course, taking us away from what made TikTok, right? That's what blew a lot of people up on TikTok, was the fact that you're going to discover something new all the time. So it's very easy for someone to, of course, grow and build their brand. While as with Substack, maybe not so much. So you want to keep that in mind. Here is a counter to that. The thing about Substack is because the audience isn't as wide just yet, there's so much opportunity to build your audience. And once you have that audience, it's easy to stay connected to them. It's easy to keep them engaged if you are consistent in working towards that. And that's one thing I like, because you could be consistent, you could be working towards that on Instagram, but let's be real, y'all. You know what I'm talking about. You could post all the live long day, and you may never reach your target audience, even if they follow you already. That's not happening here. I will give you a good example. Most recently, the last newsletter I wrote in this thing was a couple weeks ago. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, because, I was building it and checking it out, testing it around, of course, for this episode. And the funny thing about that is I'm still getting subscribers, even though the last time I wrote something was a couple weeks ago. That's 2 weeks. 2 weeks of no writing and still getting subscribers. Now, is that fair to them completely? No, because I want to put in a newsletter. But there's other opportunities for that. Chats, notes, as I brought up before, which I throw out there periodically, and that keeps them engaged. And that's the whole point. There's multiple ways to keep your audience engaged and stay connected to them. And you want to take advantage of that. But let's go to the next con. Not too many of them, but just enough. So we have subscriptions, and this is one of the game changers of Substack, because it gives you an immediate way to profit and leverage your platform, or your piece of this platform at least, and make money from it. The thing about that is with a newsletter, you really have to push why someone's going to be paying for this, right? So you have to put that engaging content in there. Now, that's not the con. The con is a profitable newsletter. It ain't easy to start. And if that's the main selling point, that's going to be a little tough, right? We have to make sure that what we're doing here is really kind of setting it apart of everything else that you're doing on other platforms. So you have some people who don't necessarily leverage the newsletter as their main focus of subscriptions. They focus on one-on-one coaching sessions, Q&As, chats, other premium ways to stay more connected and to stay closer to that person. I mean, look at this. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is on here, and you can read his newsletter for free. But, if you probably want to have a chat once in a while with him, that's a whole other thing, right? Because just the accessibility to people, right? And that's the thing about it. It's giving you a few steps closer to the people that you want to hear from the most, but it's also keeping it in a position where that creator can have a barrier or boundary And if you want, of course, make it a profitable barrier boundary, or you could just still maintain a level of exclusivity and privacy. Gotta love that. So it does give you, you know what, I just kind of talked myself out of the con. Dang. Okay, back to the drawing board then, huh? Now, one of the things I would say that a lot of people are bringing up as a con of Substack, I'm actually not going to call it as a con. I'm going to call it out as, you don't freaking know business. A lot of people think that for some reason they shouldn't take a percentage or they shouldn't take a cut of whatever subscriptions. Let's get over this for a second. You're not paying to use the platform. And believe me, you don't want to pay to use any platform because the platform's already making money off of you. So if you earn money through a platform, I will never say that that's a con, that they take a percentage. Yes, I know what y'all thinking. Y'all like, Aaron, dang, you're rooting for a platform, or you're rooting for the companies here. No, I'm thinking of it from the perspective of a company that makes a platform that you can potentially earn $100,000, maybe millions of dollars, potentially, whatever you want to earn, right? But you can earn a living from, and they probably need to take a couple of, pennies on the dollar, let's just be real, some pennies on the dollar. They need to take some percentage, right? They need to take something from you earning on the platform to pay for the processing, to pay for whatever they got to pay for. And the only way they charge you is if you are actually earning money. I'm kind of cool with that. My problem would come up if, and hopefully Substack never goes this route, hoping no platforms do this, but there are some that do this, that charge you just to use the platform. Right now, we're not talking about like web hosting. We're not talking about having a domain name thing, registration, things like that. We're talking about, listen, to use this platform, Substack, in this case, in this hypothetical, I'm not saying this is Substack, you have to pay to use Substack. That would be kind of bogus, right? Let's just make it to where, hey, you know what? If you earn from your subscriptions, we get 10%, we get 5%, we get 2%. Something like that. Not that bad of a move because of the simple fact you're still made some money off of it, and that's money you probably wouldn't have made anywhere else. Let's think about that. Now, a real con I will call out right now. Substack is not a full replacement for a true newsletter because, as I mentioned, they have multiple features from newsletters, but they themselves are not a full replacement for a newsletter. Here's a couple of elements of why. Many of the automations and segmentations that we see in newsletter tools are not there yet. I will call that out yet because it is an evolving platform. I mean, they've only been out for a few years and they've really started to grow substantially over the past 2 to 3 years. So it's understandable that it's taking time because, once again, you want to go with the core product and you want to grow from there. I will say that is a drawback, though, because if you want to fully replace an email newsletter product or platform, this might not be the best one just yet. Just yet. One of the reasons why it's not necessarily just yet a full replacement, but you want to use it in conjunction with the email marketing platform that you're using right now, like say it's MailChimp or it's Constant Contact, right? If you're using one of those other platforms, you can port those contacts over to your Substack. That is fundamentally like better than damn near every social media platform. Why, you may ask? Because you keep those contacts and you now bring them to this ecosystem. You invite them, you connect with them. You say, you know what, I'm going to be on here a lot more than I'm going to be on social media. I might throw a couple posts out there on social media, but this is the platform I'm going to be on. It literally turns your Substack into social media and email marketing and a blog and a publication and a newsletter. There's a lot of stuff going on here, people. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Just calling that out right now. Just calling that out right now. Okay. So it makes it an opportunity for you to truly connect with that audience and build more than what you see on other platforms. I mean, this is one of the newsletters I subscribe to. Lenny's newsletter is actually one of the most popular, and it's actually one of the most successful newsletters on here. And this is something you want to pay for potentially, right? You want to take that deeper dive and you want to go into, get more in-depth understanding, but you don't have to restrict yourself to the paid side. You can get a lot of good information on the free side of the platform as well. So now that we've gone over some core features and also some pros and cons technically of the platform, maybe some drawbacks and maybe why you might not decide to use Substack, let's hear from someone who's using it very effectively. It was actually the very first publication I started following. I actually started subscribing to Landon, even though I was led to Substack initially by a totally different blogger, totally different writer, and found Landon's publication perfect for what I was looking for on why Substack is a good tool to use, a good platform to use, but also the messaging and what you can get across to your audience. Maybe Landon can drop some knowledge on us, give us a few tips, pieces of advice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give me a little coffee, get my pen and paper out, get ready to take some notes, and let's get into this interview. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Ambition Show once again. Thank you so much. And we have the pleasure of having someone who has far more experience with Substack than myself. So any advice I gave you on Substack was from me clunking around, beating around on the keyboard, trying to figure it out. But that's really what we're going for here, is to get an idea from the creators, from the entrepreneurs, those who've leveraged that platform and have seen the opportunities with working with that platform. So I am really happy that he took some time out of his schedule, because this guy, once I'll call out right now, Landon is literally the second person I subscribe to on Substack. And the reason for that, I'm not trying to make him blush, but to be honest with you, is like, it's when you see creators or when you see entrepreneurs who are not only getting the most out of a platform, but also are hitting you, making an impact. You're really honored and pleased to get them have a one-on-one conversation. And he was able to take some time out of his busy schedule to help us out here. Just understand, maybe that's the platform for you, or maybe that's the place you want to be. So I'd like to introduce everybody. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, I'm definitely, shameless plug, go forward, do it. I'm saying subscribe. You ain't paying me for saying it, because I subscribe too. So we can leave notes as well. But Landon Poburan, thank you so much for joining us today, Landon. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fantastic, and I just want to kick things off and just say thank you so much for having me on the show today. I didn't know that you subscribed. I was one of the first subscribes on Substack, which is so cool to see. So thank you so much for the support there, and I'm so grateful to be here today and really excited to dig in.
Awesome. Yeah. I didn't tell you like when I first reached out to you, because I don't want you to think like, oh, now I gotta go. If it's something you're really interested in. But no, I wanted to share that with everybody, because it's very important to understand. Like, if I only share genuine, like, authentic experiences here. Platforms that I believe in, people that I would definitely say I've learned from, whether it's just a few conversations, seeing their post, or, following their work for years. So, that's why I definitely wanted to reach out, because I saw some of your notes, and I briefly in the episode, I touched on a little bit different tools, different aspects of Substack, but, that's why I really wanted to get your opinion and your input about, your experiences with Substack, because the notes are what hit me the most. I saw a lot of your long form posts, but the little notes, I was like, this guy's on the same path I am, or at least the same mindset I am to work with entrepreneurs. So first off, just a little background about yourself and about your business. And then, of course, later on we get into Substack, but a little bit more about yourself first.
Sounds good. Yeah. So myself, I have been an entrepreneur, self-employed for right around 20 years. I would identify myself as a digital marketer. I think it's the simplest term to refer to myself as. I say I'm in marketing when my parents ask me kind of what I do, because it's, too difficult to get into the nitty gritty with people that aren't familiar with what we do. But I've done so many things over the years. Everything has been kind of in and around and adjacent to marketing. Started off building websites, working with local businesses, and then kind of turned into some online marketing, running some Google ads, building out sales funnels. And this was back in the day when we were hand coding the HTML for our sales funnels before no code tools like ClickFunnels and Kajabi even existed. So I was like, I had programmers working for me. We were hand coding checkouts to be able to process payments for e-commerce sites back in the day. So things have come a long way from then. So I've done a lot of stuff, from launching a supplement company to, doing online marketing for local businesses and real estate agents, to I hand coded a social network. I opened up a brick and mortar gym, and I've done business coaching, and I've created all sorts of webinars, digital products, and it's all kind of brought me to where I'm at today, which is, I would kind of say the simplest thing that I do is I help kind of coaches and course creators grow and monetize their business. Would be the simplest kind of segue into who I help and how I do that. I do a lot of stuff in terms of paid advertising, which is a lot of what I've focused on over the last kind of 8 or so years, really heavy into paid advertising and utilizing that as a growth engine. But I love branding. I love building audiences. I love content creation. It's always really had a home for me, and really started over the last couple of years to go, okay, I need to step out from being from behind the scenes, and I need to start building up my own personal brand. And that's kind of what brought me into this journey of discovering Substack and really starting to lean into kind of getting more of my own message out there and not kind of being the guy behind the scenes helping everybody else do the work.
Yeah, no, that's a great touch on some really cool points that we can definitely deep dive into. One of the things that you touched on is just like how long you've been in the game, if you will. And I know the feeling when I tell people, I'm like, yeah, the first landing pages and platforms I was using was like MySpace and Friendster, and they're like, wait, Friendster? I'm like, yeah, I've been around that long. So when you talked about like hard coding actual funnels and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I remember those too. It's a lot, believe me. So it's come a long way, baby, as they say. And it's just interesting from that transition of everything you've seen. So when it comes to platforms and what you've seen, first off, let's talk about, like you said, you've helped coach, specifically help coaches and course creators. When it comes to courses and whatnot, what kind of courses do you help them with, or do you help them with all types of courses, all like from front to beginning to end? What's the course the help that you provide? Because that's very interesting. A lot of people are getting into that now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And so much of what I've learned myself has been figuring it out for myself. And then people asking me questions and being like, oh, well, they need this. This is the gap that they have. So then I, figure things out and then help people do it. And it's just been this like scaffolding of skill sets that I've just kind of acquired. So when it comes onto this course side, I've just built so many courses over the years, and I've ran group programs and masterminds myself, built courses for myself. I've helped my wife do it in her business. So now I don't necessarily help them kind of like construct it, although I do with some business partners that I have, like, okay, let's use this platform and let's, create the course outline, the modules. This is what we need to include in terms of like the structure and setup. A lot of what I do is kind of in a consulting lens of, okay, this is what we need to do. These are kind of the courses that we should be creating in terms of how can we maximize the economics of their business to be able to generate more revenue from kind of like a strategic standpoint. Yeah. But then also looking at, okay, how are we actually going to, get this into the hands of people? How are we going to sell it? How are we going to take this thing that you've created and now start to use it to grow your business? Yeah. And now as I'm starting to work with some newer creators and people that are, they're writing on Substack, or they're starting to grow an audience and now they want to start to monetize. Now it's kind of coming into this lens of, okay, now they're trying to, maybe they don't want to create a paid subscription on Substack and they want to start making money. And then now we're looking at, okay, well, what are the opportunities for that? Courses is one of them. And I am starting to look through and test things for myself to go, okay, well, what's the simplest way that somebody could get into this? Maybe they don't got $100 a month because they're just brand new. They don't got $100 a month to pay for a Kajabi membership or a ClickFunnels membership to use these platforms. So I'm going out there and going, okay, well, what's available for somebody like this? What's going to be the best opportunity for somebody brand new? So I've been testing things myself and trying to come up with like the simplest way that I think somebody can create. I wouldn't even necessarily say a course, but a product, something to be able to create in a value exchange for money. So there's a lot of things. So if there's anything specific you want to unpack there, let me know and we can take it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, no, that is a lot there. One thing I've noticed that especially you brought a product, and that's one thing I've noticed with Substack. A lot of people are leaning more towards like, how can we make a nice product on here? When you look at Substack and product development, like what do you see the opportunities there for? To your point, because a lot of people are just jumping on, they don't have a name, they're just like, hey, I'm checking this, trying this out. Maybe I'm coming from blogging, maybe I'm coming from social media. What do you see the opportunities there on Substack with developing product?
Yeah, I think I come to Substack from a little bit of a different lens than a lot of the people. So when I came to Substack just under 2 years ago, it was largely a writing-based community. There are people there that are just want to write and share their work. And then there's a lot of people that were teaching writing, how to write better. And I'm coming into this going, I'm a marketer and I'm not trying to make money from writing. I'm trying to use writing to make money and grow my business. So it's this little, it's a very subtle shift, but when you think about it, it's fundamentally different. So people that are like, how do I make money from writing? They're usually going, I want to be a blogger. I want to do affiliate marketing. I want to make money from AdSense, or they're posting on Medium to get revenue there, or they're going to Substack and looking to create a paid subscription. I came at it from a different lens and went, I don't really want to do a paid subscription because I'm a firm believer in trying to make education accessible for all. I want to make help as much as I can, serve as many people as I can. And also, as Substack grows, it's going to get really difficult to differentiate yourself from, look at YouTube. Like, I don't know anybody that's on Substack pushing content that isn't freely available on something like YouTube or on Medium. So I wanted to think of how can I create this and use my marketing skills to generate revenue. So I look at Substack more as like building a personal brand than trying to create this writing business. So it's no different than if I was looking at utilizing X or LinkedIn or Instagram to build my business and sell my courses and programs. I leverage Substack in the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the first thing I thought when I got to Substack. I'll be honest with you, I was like, because some of the people I've seen there, I was like, yeah, I know that guy on YouTube too. especially Medium. When you mentioned Medium, like, yeah, a lot of people from Medium, because when I first heard of Substack, it was because I was writing on Medium, and then people started mentioning they were going over there. And one thing I see Substack, like I said, glad you mentioned how to potentially, not trying to sway everybody, but one way to leverage it, I actually see it as kind of like I prefer social media, if you will, in a way. You know, it a little less noise, a little bit more curated to what you want to hear and what you want to see, but also just a lot of nonsense that's not there. That's, you know, a little bit more. If you want to jump into the chaos of it all, you can go to X or Instagram. But if you want a little bit more of a cleaner view and connect with not just like-minded people, but just people that you want to feed and get information from, I see Substack as like that. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think that's a something I noticed in it as well, something I like about it as well. But when it comes to, because you brought up writers, and I know you're not a writer, more of, like you said, digital marketer, and I think everything you brought up about that is digital marketing. When people say digital marketing, like, yeah, it's best to just say marketing. This is a lot under that umbrella. As a marketer going towards Substack and leveraging a platform like Substack, when you are helping a client, or you're not even a client, when you're just helping like your audience, what tools or what aspects of Substack do you see the most where you can build out that audience, where you can build out that community, just like a social media platform? You know, what do you see as the best opportunities there, or the best options that you've had?
So I kind of look at it we have these kind of like distinct components. So Notes wasn't always there. So Notes wasn't, as far as I know, I don't think it was always there. I could be wrong. But we have this long form post engine. Right. And the beauty of Substack is anybody who subscribes is technically an email subscriber, and we control that information. So I can export that list. I can see the emails that have subscribed. I can see the people how often they're engaging, who's opening my emails. No different than if they subscribed on Kit or MailChimp or whatever platform I'm using. And then they have this Notes platform, which is effectively like Twitter kind of baked into Substack. So if I was leveraging without Substack, I'd be going on LinkedIn or X or Instagram, and I'd be trying to build an audience, and I'd be trying to deplatform those people onto my email list. And then I'd be using my email list in order to generate my revenue, either push them to my sales, get them onto a sales call to sell them a high-ticket coaching program. On Substack, we're able to kind of like remove that step. We don't need to deplatform them and drive them to a landing page in order to do that, because I can post notes, they hit subscribe, and now they're on my list. And then when I send out my long form content is getting directly delivered to their email. So those two, as they go hand in hand, are just really a powerhouse in being able to build an audience. Notes is a growth engine. It generates subscribers. It drives people into subscribing to us, where we now can have direct access into their inbox with our long form posts. I believe their terminology makes it confusing, because we refer to always things as posts, and like a post is called a post and then a note. So it's like I posted it, so it makes it a little confusing, but kind of the long form newsletters. But I also like to do kind of like a third thing with that, and I still maintain an external email list that isn't inside of Substack. And I still use Substack to drive people there. So I create this little system between the Substack ecosystem, because also when somebody goes to your publication, it's also kind of like a mini website.
Exactly.
You can control the navigation links, you can control the formatting and the layout of your homepage, what they see, and you can control like the links in the footer that go out with your emails. So I like to design this to create almost kind of a mini sales funnel. I want to use my notes to be able to generate attention and get people to subscribe. I want to use my long form content on Substack to create depth, build trust, build rapport.
Right.
And then I want to use that to now funnel people to my products, my services, and my external email list. So it's almost kind of like acts like almost like a double opt-in. They subscribe to me on Substack. Inside of there, I'm giving them access to resources, to, you know, my content calendar that I use to publish all of my notes, or I've got this course called Subliminal Selling, and I'm using them to pull them into my ecosystem, because when I go into ConvertKit, now I can start to build out my nurture sequences and my sales sequences and my automations and things like that, which we don't have the capability to do in the Substack platform.
Right.
And now I just have this, you know, I've got a 5,000 person audience. I generate sales every single week through utilizing all of these courses that I've created, promoting them to my Substack audience or promoting them to my kit list. And it's just this beautiful little funnel where once you have that ecosystem built, all you really have to focus on is writing daily.
Yeah. No,
because it's built, because they just go through, they see your notes, they subscribe to your posts, they read your posts, they subscribe to your email list, or they purchase a product. And now once you have all of those automations and things set up, you just continue to just feed people on the top, and you already have that foundation built.
Yeah, you've already kind of built out that pipeline. Yeah, it's I must admit, like, that was one of the things that, and I wanted to get to the question of, like, why you originally like chose Substack, and like how long it took you to get to the, you know, point where you kind of build out that pipeline. You know, I know it takes testing is everything, but I would say, like, that's one of the things also that led me to say, well, maybe I'll put more energy into Substack, because my big thing was social media, then to a landing page. My landing page was usually connected to either MailChimp, or I was using, at one point I used I think it was a vertical response. At one point I just tested out, because it was a client, they wanted to use vertical response. I'm like, let me try it out too. But I always went back to MailChimp or Constant Contact as my email marketing. And then basically a lot of additional steps or other platforms you would have to connect. And of course you have the issue where social media, if it's a link to something outside, they push it to the bottom of the list, basically, and no one ever sees it. So, and then you have to put money behind that and running ads and stuff. So yeah, I definitely see the opportunity where it kind of eliminates those additional tools and those additional steps. So what brought you initially to Substack? And, well, you know, because like you said, it sounds like you're still using ConvertKit as well. So what brought you initially to Substack as opposed to using one of the other, like, social media platforms, or just another platform like a Beehive or something like that potentially?
Yeah, totally. So I've done everything. Like I've literally I've done everything. I've been active on Instagram for ages. I grew a TikTok following, like, not in the early days, but I grew it up to like 5,000 followers, then kind of stopped. I've tried to go active on YouTube. I've had 3 podcasts. I've recorded over 200 podcast episodes over the years. What really got me into Substack was I was just over social media. I was so burnt out from trying to do all of the things. I was like writing content, recording it as a YouTube video, pulling the audio for a podcast, chopping it up into 5-10 clips, then writing all the captions, creating the covers. I was hiring photographers to do professional photo shoots so I could get content for my Instagram. And I was just like, I want to share my information so bad, but I just don't have the bandwidth to create all of these additional assets for everything. So it's like, if I want to create a YouTube video, yeah, I can write a script and come up with the idea, but then I got to record a video, and then I need a nicer backdrop and better lights, and I need a video editor and someone to design the thumbnail, and then I got to do all this SEO stuff that I couldn't do it. So, then I tried to go on to, Instagram. You need an image for everything. So you're either designing it, or you're creating photos, or you have to create videos and reels and edit them. It was just too much for me. I went on to LinkedIn. LinkedIn, if you're just writing text, it kind of flops. So you have to have an image associated with every single post on LinkedIn. So that kind of got old. And I was like, Substack was this place when I discovered it that I could just write.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I want to write. I've tried in the past. I've always come back. I've got multiple notes in different binders of coming back to writing. I've considered switching my career to become a writer, to become a copywriter, an email marketer, and it just kind of never stuck. So I remember back when I was owning my gym, I was writing articles, trying to get, ranked in local SEO. I created this was like, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago, back in the tech space, was called Debug Magazine. It's probably nothing there, but I was like, I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to make money like Smashing Magazine. I'm going to get affiliates and I'm going to get ad revenue. Like, no, that never happened. But I kept coming back to this writing. I started to do some writing for my wife's business a number of years ago, writing emails and sales pages and things like that. So Substack gave me an opportunity to just write.
Gotcha.
And I kind of made this commitment. My very first goal was I'm going to write 24 pieces.
Okay.
I'm going to write consistently for 6 months. I have no idea what's going to happen. I just want to try and get into writing. I knew that I enjoyed it. I didn't have to worry about thumbnails and all of these things. So in those early days, I wasn't even posting notes. I was just focused on writing. I had like a one writing block a week. I would write and publish a post, and I focused on that for 6 months. But it started because, first off, I wanted to build a personal brand, and I wanted to find a way to do it just through written word without all of these other things.
Yeah.
And once I stripped away all of those other things and was able to just funnel all of that energy into just writing, I started to figure it out. But I made that commitment to myself that like, I'm going to figure it out. Like, I'm stubborn. I can figure this out. And I eventually did. And I'm really, really happy that I focused on it. But I might get into all of those other things again. Yeah. But it's this constant reminder to myself of focus.
Yeah.
It's at a time when I can hire a video editor. Maybe I can have somebody that gives me the idea. They go through my content and I'm like, create a YouTube video on this. Right. And I just pop open my camera and I can do it. But until I get to a point in my career or my business where those things aren't taking away from anything else.
Exactly.
It's just going to stay on the back burner. Like I have a reminder, like every quarter, I'm like, review, like, should I get back onto podcasting and YouTube again? Because I know the benefit of it.
Right.
I'm not silly, but I also know how fast it led me to burnout, how many times I've been burnt out. And I've had this conversation repeatedly with so many different writers, creators, course creators out there where they're like, they're so burnt out from content because they're trying to put out all of this stuff every single day. Yeah. Repurposing content isn't as simple as people think it is. Like, just put that post out across 5 platforms and you're like, okay, well, this one needs an image. This one has to get tweaked so it's contextually relevant. This, Substack doesn't have a scheduling API, so you have to post that one manually, but you can schedule out these ones.
You can optimize for every other one that you're populating for, because it's just a waste of time.
It takes time. It takes time. So it's like, if you have the capacity for it,
right,
then maybe it's worth trying. Yeah. But if you don't, or just like the thought of that, just like literally makes you sick to your stomach, like maybe just try focusing on one. Yeah. Maybe there's some power in a little bit of prioritization and not trying to be like this massive efficiency person.
100%. And it's wow. Because I was just listening because I'm like, man, that was definitely me at one point. And I think that's everybody who's attempting to get into it. Well, it doesn't matter what you're marketing, whatever it is, but whenever you get into these social platforms, these online platforms, I was just watching an interview. One of my favorite journalists, he has a YouTube channel, Bomani Jones. Don't know if you know of him, but one of my favorites, sports guy, but he always gets into more life stuff. And he's just talking about, he's like, yeah, you have to be on every platform. He's like, promoting his new YouTube channel. He's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm there. He's like, then you look up, you're like, I'm on 30 different platforms. You're like, where to find me? I don't even know where to find me. He's like, because I'm everywhere, and it's just like, well, it goes back to that whole thing, like, well, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority, right? But then
exactly
all that stuff on your back. Because when you mentioned that, I just thought about it. I was like, yeah, when I think about when I was really going hard on Instagram, I was like, yeah, I got to write all the copy, but I got to have good pictures. So let me have somebody else take the pictures, because I don't want to just take the pictures, because you got to edit the pictures. People always talk about, like, yeah, you can take a picture, but you got to edit that thing. It ain't going to look right. You got to put something. So no, it's easy to burn yourself out, and it is easy to get away from what you really want to do, and really,
Yeah.
what's the overall purpose. Now, you said you've been on Substack for a couple years now, about 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, give or take. It'd be, I believe it's kind of like 18, 19 months, so just under 2 years.
Okay, just only 2 years. What do you see as like and I know everybody's gonna be a little different, especially based on their message and their content, whatever they're posting, pushing the video, maybe a podcast, because I know you can, do podcasts on Substack as well. I'd love to get your opinion of that, if that's something you may get back into. But what did you see as, okay, this was the thing that helped me really kind of get over the hump of, okay, I'm getting not only subscribers, but also I'm getting followers. I'm getting people who are really getting my message and really, running with it. Because subscribers are nice, likes are nice, all that good stuff. But we want people who really get our message and become loyal, followers, if you will, people who really become loyal, brand loyalists. What was that tool, or what was the thing that worked for you that you found?
Yeah, I'd love to say that it was just this magical moment where I did this thing, and then, like all of the BS that we see people writing about, and you're like, no, that didn't actually happen. You're just using it because it makes a good flow for the article you're writing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to spot BS in people's articles now. It's unfortunate. But for me, really what it was just the dedication to keep going and iterating.
Okay.
So the more you I'm a believer, the more you publish content and you're watching the data and you're testing things out, you just slowly start to get more dialed into what people actually want to see. And it's part of that is the difference between writing for ourselves and writing for our audience. So, and this is kind of where I always try and tell people, you don't have to listen to me if you're not here to use Substack to grow your business, because then what I'm saying isn't really relevant. Exactly. But if you're using Substack to grow your business, you can't only write about what you want to write about. You have to write about what people want to read about. Sure. So as you start to post more and you just simply start to pay attention to the data and go, this didn't work. People liked this one. This post hit really well. And then you just simply go it's not overcomplicated. It's do more of what works and do less of what doesn't. And continuing to test. So when I was initially started, I was writing about all sorts of stuff. I had posts about ADHD and posts about my gym and posts about Facebook ads and posts about webinars and posts about content creation. And I've just started to get my message dialed in, and I've stripped some stuff away, and I'll still take some of those elements, but they'll be more wrapped up into the story to deliver the point that I'm conveying through an article. And just little by little, very methodical, I just slowly started to improve the quality of my content. As I started to improve the quality of the content, then the notes I was creating, because I'll use my long form content to pull out a lot of the short form content, so it's very relevant to who I'm speaking to. And then those started to get more engagement. And then again, with the notes, starting to pay attention to the data, what formats work, what lengths work, and then just simply starting to create iterations and variations of the things that work. And then the comments that started to come in, you could just start to tell it was resonating with people more. When you start to get people sending you messages about, how influential that post was for them, and also staying top of mind, that consistency. I think that there's a lot that is very overlooked in just doing things for longer. So Jay Klaus, he said it very well in a note I read yesterday, and he was like, if you're looking at somebody who is doing better than you and they've been doing it for longer, he's like, that's the reason. He's like, there's not usually a secret. It's time in the paint. And this is something that as I really started to get into branding and really started to invest and take courses and pay attention to people, and I was started to look at and go, okay, the podcasters that I was looking up to that were doing really well, I'm like, okay, this person has put out 900 episodes. It's like, okay, I've put out, 37 on this new podcast that I was released. And I was like, okay, well, why is this not working? And I was like, okay, this blogger is doing really well. I'm like, okay, he just told me he has published 2,000 blog posts. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. I've put out 37. Like, okay, there's a difference here. Right. And then you look at YouTubers, and we can take the big people like Logan and Jake Paul or Mr. Beast, they've been publishing videos for 20 years.
Exactly.
And then we go, okay, I hear people and they're like, I've been on Substack for a month and I got 12 subscribers. What do I do? And it's like, talk to me in a year from now or in 5 years from now. So I'm a believer that consistency is like the root of everything. And that when we are consistent, we just naturally start to seek out ways to improve. And quality is always going to be king. Like if you consistently put out crap, yes, it's not going to do well. But I do believe that as you are consistently publishing content, you're going to get better at publishing content. You're going to get better at watching the data and doing more of what works. Then you're going to start to just look at all of these other little things. Yeah. And then, I started to work on my headlines. I started to work on like a better structure inside my posts. And then as I was writing, I was like asking people questions. And as I started to see questions rolling in, I was like, hey, all of these people want this thing. So then I created a solution to it, and that became my first product.
Exactly.
And then as I was writing, I was like, hey, this is a new framework for a thing. And then I was like, put out questions to my audience. Like, oh, people are looking for this. They're asking questions about this. When I put out a poll, everybody wanted this one thing. Right. That became the next course that I put together. And it was just this slow incremental way that probably over the course, it was probably started after about that first year mark when things really started to click for me on Substack.
Right.
And then it was like, I was starting to grow. I started to then more collaborations were kind of coming inbound to me because of connections that I was making. I was getting more recommendations. And then all of these things started to kind of come together where it becomes difficult to kind of like decouple and be like, this one thing worked.
Yeah.
Now at the point I'm at, there's a lot of things that are contributing to it.
Okay.
But it all really stems from that fundamental of like consistently putting out content that's good quality, showing up, because I think being top of mind is overlooked. Like I posted a note and I just immediately got a reply, or sorry, I posted an Instagram story, which I'm not active, but I just was like, I'm just going to throw up a couple stories.
Right.
Somebody saw it and they immediately sent me a message. I'm like, that's just being top of mind. Like they were thinking about it and my thing popped up and I'm their ad guy and I sparked them sending me a message and they referred me to a client. So just these things, like you need to be there when people are looking for you.
Right. It's funny how you mentioned, because two things going back to how you mentioned consistency, and consistency is really, really a game changer. But the part I really want to, hopefully everybody's listening to this, because this is like the connection. It's consistency, but like you said, you actually have to be listening, right? You actually have to look at the data, because look, the data is, it's like people always talk about, oh, it's the algorithm, this algorithm. You're the algorithm. People hate on the algorithm. Like, you're the algorithm. You are your algorithm. You see, because that's what you're clicking on. That's what you're talking about. That's what you're interested in. Whether you are doing it absentmindedly, I don't know, maybe you're hitting it or not, but it's the same thing. It's like, so if you're looking at the data, you're looking at like what's working, what's hitting with people, that inconsistent to constantly going back to that, to your point, like maybe it's every quarter or maybe it's every end of the month. I do mine as like pretty much like every quarter kind of thing, 2 business quarters, where I look back, okay, what's my best performing this? What's my best performing that? And let me double down on that. That's what really matters, is paying attention to what the audience wants, but then consistently doing that, and you'll get better, because that's where that quality comes from. Because it's like you said, it's, am I here for the audience or am I here for myself? If I'm here for myself, great. It's going to be an echo chamber. Nothing's going to be there. But I'll show up every day. So, real quick, because I don't want to hold you up your time for too much longer, but I definitely, this is some great gems you're dropping, and it's not just from a Substack standpoint, but overall from any creative entrepreneur, I think can take a lot of great pieces that you dropped with us. But what is, if someone wanted to start, right? If someone was just going to start out on Substack, not just their business, but they wanted to bring their business, whatever they've been doing, over to Substack, what is a piece of advice you would give to them right now as just starting out? Like, they're like, hey, I just made an account. What's the best thing you could say? Hey, is this a great way to start out for yourself?
I think if I was giving, so I just was on a phone call with a gentleman yesterday. This is the same piece of advice that I gave him, would be the first 6 months are just a discovery phase. So I see a lot of people inside of like, I've been posting for 30 days. I've been posting for 2 weeks. I've been posting for 3 months. And it's like the first 6 months is literally like, can you consistently post?
Okay.
Figuring out what you want to post about, figuring out what works, figuring out like what your voice is. Like, how am I going to communicate with things? There's an infinite number of ways that you could put out content. if we look at newsletters, it can be tutorial style content. It could be trend. It could be curating from different people. It could be, doing deep dive reports into like tech companies or entrepreneurs. It could be, here's the market trends from like the crypto industry. Like your industry might have different things than my industry does, but those first 6 months are just like an experimentation.
Yeah.
And when you try and hyper analyze the details, when you haven't put in enough reps, you don't have enough data. It's no different than if we like zoom out and think from like a scientific standpoint or like a marketing like split test standpoint. We can't analyze data until we have significantly or like statistically significant numbers to look at. So if you've put out 4 posts and you're like, hey, I'm not getting any traction, I'm like, well, it's because you've put out 4 posts. Like, you just got to do it a little bit more. So if somebody's starting, I had a business partner who's like, should we start a Substack and just repurpose emails? I'm like, if you're not going to consistently do it for 6 months and like invest in the platform, then I don't recommend it. I would just like revisit it at a point when you can actually put the proper amount of effort into it.
Right.
If you're wanting it to be for a business outcome. So for somebody starting, I think the biggest thing is to understand that these platforms, it's like figuring out a game. It's going to take some time to figure it out. It's going to take some time to level up, to gain the experience points. It's going to be difficult in the beginning. You don't have any subscribers or followers in the beginning. Like no one's following you. You are literally posting to no one. So you have to build that momentum, but use that time to like, how do I want to portray things? What do I want to communicate? What do I believe in? What do I disagree with in the industry? Like figuring out what your unique message is, the best way that you can communicate it to people. Use that time when no one's watching to figure out those things, because if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter, but you're still learning. There's more value. Not everything is quantifiable when it comes to building a brand and growing on Substack. And then with time, as you get that nailed in, you're consistently publishing, you're starting to see a little bit of growth, you're starting to figure out some of these things. Then there's probably like 3 or 4 kind of like strategies that across the board will allow people to start accelerating their growth.
I love that. No, I love the way that, because it goes right back to me, we were just talking about consistency, but just being honest with yourself, like you said, because it reminds me, speaking of your notes, of a note you published a couple of days ago. I think it was a couple of days ago, where you basically I think you said like the first 31 days of the first 30 days you were talking to nobody. And I just looked back and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. You're talking to nobody because you're just filling it out what works for you. And that's really important, just to understand, hey, be honest and be fair with yourself. It's going to be a ride, but if you're not going to invest in it, be honest with yourself. If you really think this is what's going to work for your business, then you have to invest in it. And that's going to take some time. It's just like I had a conversation with a client about SEO and they were thinking like, oh, I want to be at the top of Google in 1 month. I'm like, well, that ain't going to happen. Even if you spend all the monies in the world, it still pretty much won't happen. It's going to take time if you want a true, authentic, return on that investment. That takes some time, especially if you haven't been doing it before. So, no, I really hope a lot of people listen to that, because they can take that to any platform. That's not just Substack. That was a great
exactly. The fundamentals apply across the board. Yeah. It's if you want to go to Instagram, you got to understand like Instagram is its own thing. There is a way to play the Instagram game, and it is different than Substack, and it evolves a lot different because of the saturation on the platform. Yeah. It's very easy for us to say, and I've said it as well, like no one's growing on LinkedIn. Well, yeah, there are people that are growing on LinkedIn, but they're playing the LinkedIn game.
Exactly.
They are studying what works on LinkedIn. They are, they're investing time, money. They're in the engagement groups. They're paying for like they're doing the stuff to play the game. Yeah. I have an old colleague of mine. He's took a little bit of an absence from social media. He's done a couple $1 million exits in companies. So he's back on Instagram, and what he's doing, he just hired 2 people to follow him around, and now he is pumping out content nonstop. But like, there's a way to play the game. Right. Now you don't have to go to that extreme. The reason a lot of people like Substack now is because you don't have to play as much of that game. But like, we can't be naive and think that There's 35 million monthly active users on Substack, and there's 1 billion on LinkedIn, and there's 4 or 5 billion on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it is new, but if they grow like they're trying to, it's going to change.
Sure.
And as more people come, it's going to get more saturated, and it will become more difficult to get visibility, and it's going to repeat. I have this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
We can't be too naive to think this platform isn't going to follow suit with the other ones. If it grows, it will be more difficult to get visibility.
Exactly. And it's funny because you see those lot of conversations where people are like, "Oh, I'm glad it's not like this, not like this." Like, yeah, not now, but believe me, the founders, they have a goal. They definitely have a goal.
Exactly.
To get to a certain point.
Yeah, they wouldn't be pushing so hard to pull people from other platforms if, and that's the thing. It's like, I don't want it to turn into X and LinkedIn. And it's like, where do you think the growth is coming from? It's people coming from X, LinkedIn, and Instagram. They're coming over to Substack. So like, I also want to keep it to be a nice supportive community,
Right.
But it's going to evolve.
Right.
I don't know what that's going to look like, but it will 100% evolve. And I know the one thing that I can control is I can keep showing up and not stop. Yeah. Because the only thing I know for sure is it's really freaking hard to grow if you stop.
Very true. Very true. And break that consistency chain, but also control what you can control. You control your message, you can control what's out there, and you know, hey, it may happen, but if there's another platform you may want to go to, at least you have your voice has been consistent and people will follow that voice, because that's the big thing. Yeah. And excuse me. But that's the last thing I wanted to ask you about when it comes to community and building out the audience. Like, did you find it easier to, or have you brought people from other platforms, like your other audiences or the audience that you had on another previous platform? Have you brought them over to Substack, or did you have to like build it out from scratch? I mean, of course, you still have to build something from scratch, but did you have to build everything from scratch where no one came over?
I imported a really small email list that I had. Now, that email list was pretty much completely unrelated. Like, they had opted into some random chat GPT thing that I had created, which was not related to what I was posting about on Substack, which when you look at my growth chart, it starts because I imported a list. But the first 10 months of me on Substack is a decrease in my followers. So I just lost followers. Yeah. So I technically wasn't growing for about 8 to 10 months on Substack. So, but yeah, like, sorry, could you repeat the question? Yeah, when I started with a little bit of a list. Yeah. But when it comes to pulling people from my other platforms over to Substack, that's not something I put a whole ton of energy into. What I do is I have a little bit of a network from years of business development and going to events on Facebook. So I'll share my long form content when I post like a long form piece.
Gotcha.
I'll put like a little bit of like a teaser and link it back to Substack. I'll link to content through kind of like emails that I send through Kit, but there isn't a very large emphasis on trying to siphon my other audiences over to Substack. My recommendation generally is, if you're trying to grow on Substack and you have a large existing audience somewhere, so let's say somebody has built up 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they want to stop posting on LinkedIn and they want to start posting on Substack. Yeah. In that context, yes, it makes sense to work to pull people over to Substack. Okay. And I've written some articles on kind of like the process to do it, but effectively you need to give them a reason. You need to give them a reason, and you need to tell them why they should be following you over there. And if you're just going to post the same thing that you're posting on LinkedIn, they don't have a reason to follow you over there. So some sort of free training, some sort of unique content they're not getting over there, the more reasons that they have to get over to that platform, the better. But when I talk to people and they're like, well, should I be on these other platforms? But they don't exist there yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if you're focused on Substack and you have 0 followers on Instagram and LinkedIn, now you're trying to build those to then pull them to Substack. In that case, I would recommend people invest that time and energy just to growing on Substack, and instead of trying to build 3 platforms at the same time, master the one and then experiment with potentially going elsewhere.
Yeah. And that's what I know. And I'm glad you kind of gave that, not only what you've done in the past with, from the email list, but you were just very frank and just like, hey, it's people who had nothing to do with Substack or what I was writing about Substack. Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss out on is they're thinking like, oh, I have a big following over here. But to your point, if you're going to do something completely different, then the most likely the people aren't going to be interested. And then also, if you're going to do the exact same thing, why are you trying to pull them away from another platform potentially? And just to be really frank with yourself, like, is it really necessary to build up 3 platforms at the same time? If it's something you want to dedicate energy into, dedicate that energy and focus in on it. And hopefully you can master it, but at the very least you can learn as you go and you can put the energy. Because I brought this up in a past discussion with an associate. I was like, yeah, you're trying to get 100% out of 100% output out of 20 or 50% input. Not going to work.
Exactly.
You fall flat on your face every time. All right, Landon. So real quick, before I let you go, of course, how can we find you? Your Substack, I'm assuming. But what's all the things for if we want to connect with Landon, people want to find out about your message?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm most active on Substack. I post long form content 1 to 2 times a week. I post multiple times a day with notes, and my content is centered around monetizing your business, growing your audience, staying consistent. I try and not just be a tip and trick account. I try and teach a lot through my stories, my experiences. Like, I've made these mistakes. Let me try and educate you so you don't have to make as many as I did. You'll probably have to make a few of them because that's how a lot of us learn. But I try and teach through experience and just share as much as I can and try and allow people to kind of see themselves in my message to kind of inspire them to keep going. My Substack, I'm sure you'll link it up, but it's just my name, landonpoburan.substack.com. The publication name is Landon's Letters. I wasn't super creative with it, and I seem to be growing all right. So we'll leave it at that. My website is landonp.com. That's where you can find out a little bit more about me, but most of my stuff is going to be on Substack.
Substack, perfect. Yeah, and then just real quick, I love how you said it wasn't really creative, but actually it's the smartest thing because sometimes we get a little too creative and then people can't find us. I've done that in the past, and I was like, well, you know what? This is what I got this little name, Aaron, the brand builder. People call me the brand builder for some years. Like, I'll keep that because people knew me from that. I'm like, I'll keep that. But I'm like, I'm definitely keeping my name in there because I've come up with some stuff and I'm like, how the hell is anyone going to find me?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I just have really come to simplicity over the last couple of years. Like, could it be more creative? Probably. But do I feel like investing the time into it? No, not really. Like, it's like, I do think that sometimes good enough is enough because the alternative in most cases is that it doesn't get done. So I'll take consistently putting out stuff over just never doing anything.
No, 100%. We can easily overthink it, and we can easily, it's like as they say, what is it, paralysis by analysis kind of thing. We can just overthink things too much, and then we unfortunately overthink it to where it overthinks it to the audience can't even comprehend what's going on. You're doing too much. I don't understand what's going on, or they don't see the consistent message. Hey, my mama said it to me, and I know she loved me. She just said, keep it simple. And I was like, yeah, drop the last S. She said, no, sometimes you're stupid. But sometimes you got to keep it simple. I'm like, thanks, mama. But I laugh at my own jokes. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Landon. Like you said, we will have the links for sure, Substack, but also to your website as well in the description of this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time, man, to just share with the audience and connect with us here, man. Really, thank you so much for it.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be on. Fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
You got it, brother.
And thank you once again, Landon, for joining us. And it's really cool to have Landon on here. I hope you guys picked up what he dropped for us. A couple things, right? Number one, you just got to get in there and test. You got to get in there and try it out. You got to get in there and see. And that's really what the whole core of this Pick the Platform series is. We're going to go over a couple more platforms in a few future episodes where we get into what is the best platform for you. And you have to identify that. But your best way for you to identify it is just to test it out and see. And Substack is growing. And it's a great opportunity, like I said, with the audience being there. But better yet, it's a platform where you can really fortify and really build and flourish with the audience that you currently have. And of course, creating a whole new audience. As I mentioned, in some cases, some days, unfortunately, haven't posted in a few days, my full newsletter, but I've just posted up a few notes and I'm still getting subscribers. And that's incredibly impactful Whatever your strategy may be, it's incredibly impactful if people are able to see what you're talking about, see your message, connect with you, and then, of course, hey, subscribe to you and follow you and see what else you got going on. And they're sharing it out from there. Now, if you want to monetize that from the beginning, or you want to take your time and develop and kind of get your feet wet, of course, completely understand that. And that goes into today's book of the episode in What to Read. What to read today makes perfect sense of the selection because this is the book. This is the author who brought me, if you will, to Substack. Follow them on another platform, which we will touch on in a different episode. We'll talk about that platform. I've been following Dr. Mehmet Yildiz for quite some time on that other platform as a blogger, as an author. He has a couple publications there. And then he mentioned he was dropping this new book. And I was like, oh, well, this sounds cool. What's this little Substack thing he's talking about? And slowly but surely, through a series of articles, through a series of which I thought was an absolutely fantastic way to lead people to the overall book, he dropped chapter by chapter on that other platform to where we had consumed portions of the book and couldn't wait to get to the entire publication. Substack Mastery. Insider secrets from a content strategist, and this guy definitely is a content strategist, but most importantly, an effective content strategist. Because a lot of people have strategy, it's not necessarily impactful and effective. And seasoned author, I totally butchered the subtitle of the book. I'm so sorry, but you get my point. It was actually the book that not only brought a lot of people to Substack from the platform that I originally found his work, but it's helping people to understand and kind of demystify it. Because when you have a lot of elements, when you have a lot of features coming at people, especially for a platform that's brand spanking new, but everyone's talking about it, there's a tendency to get, yes, excited. You really want to get on that platform and really get it going, see what works and what doesn't work. But you also have that whole, we all know it, paralysis by analysis, right? You see a bunch of what's notes, what's chat, what's all these different things. Okay, let me play around with it. But it's so much going on where it's a lot of noise. And that was actually what they were trying to avoid, right? It helps to have a text like this to kind of outline a path for you, not only from a strategy standpoint, but just overall a way to consume the information and understand the platform that you're getting into. And frankly, I cannot help but recommend this book simply because it helped demystify some stuff for me. Okay. I was busy. I was working on my newsletter on other platforms. And I was like, hey, you know what? I want to see what else is out there. But I also want to understand, will it actually do not only what they claim to do, but what I'm not seeing from other platforms, kind of combine it into one. And that's why I chose to start using Substack, and this book definitely made that an easier transition. I would say check it out immediately as you're working on Substack, not before. Don't do that whole thing where, okay, I'm gonna read the book, I'm gonna watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and then I'm gonna start. And you know what happens? You never start. It never gets going. It never happens. And that's the reason why I changed my shirt. I probably knocked over my coffee when I kept doing this with my hands. I speak with my hands. You got to deal with it, people. Check out Substack Mastery by Dr. Yildiz. And I'm telling you right now, if you're reading the book while you're going through the steps of Substack, listen to what Landon, shared with us, a few tips, a few pieces of advice, and just, some, not only just words of encouragement, but some real words to move by. You have kind of that perfect trifecta just to get started and see if it's the platform for you. Now, once again, that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. What I'm saying is if it's the right platform for you and your audience. And that, once again, is the entire purpose of this series when we're going into pick your platform. Yeah. You know how to do a shameless plug, right? So if you want to pick up the book, feel free. Use the link in the description of this episode, supporting us by using that link. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And for everyone that has gone and supported us by, picking up the links where you've purchased the books that we're recommending or you're working with one of our affiliates, really appreciate your support. It's helping the show grow. It's helping the show keep going because, hey, y'all, we out here. Once again, freelancing, digital marketing agency. But hey, this podcast, decided to make the podcast when I had a couple consulting clients say, you know what? Why not jump on, make your podcast? Been doing this for the past little over a year now. And frankly, it's one of the best experiences possible. And that's why we started this series specifically. Which platform is the best for you? Then pick your platform, because whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, sometimes everyone being on Instagram, everyone being on Facebook, everyone being on this platform, that platform, that's not necessarily the best for you and your brand. And what we want to do here is we want to help you identify what tools and opportunities are out there for you to grow your small business, for you to grow your brand, or start your business from scratch. Because that's sometimes where we're missing information. We get a lot of formation information and we get a lot of the fundamentals, but people don't take that next step in that deeper dive of, okay, now how do I flourish? Or what is it going to take to demystify some of this technology out here? And that's what we're here for you. So for everyone who has supported the show by using those links, thank you so much. For everybody who has supported the show by signing up and subscribing, once again, much appreciated. And thank you. We have a lot more to come. And we have a few more episodes for the whole Pick Your Platform. And I've name dropped one of them. I don't know if you caught it, but I name dropped one platform that we will be talking about. Is that the right platform for your business and for your brand? Hopefully you picked up on it. It's going to be in our next episode for Pick Your Platform. But for now, thank you so much. This has been the episode where we talk about Substack. Is it the right platform for you? Check out the book. Listen to what Landon said. Take a few elements from the features that we went over here. And of course, jump on Substack right now. You can use the link in the description to sign up for Substack and get started for yourself. Let's see what goes. And hey, if you get a chance, share your Substack with me. I would love to check it out. See what you got going over there, what your business is, what you're talking about. Are you a blogger? Are you a author? Maybe you're using this to launch your next film. Maybe you're writing short stories. I would love to know what you're going to do with your Substack platform. And with that, I've been your host, Aaron Muhammad. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Ambition Show podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. Catch you around the next episode. Peace. Best to you and yours.